And the next day I took a train and went home to my aunt and uncle in Brenham, Texas. And they lived on a farm. And my aunt said, "You need to go to college." And they had a nice, real great college in Brenham, Texas. It's called Blinn College. And so I went down there and registered. Found out that I never would have gotten to go to college otherwise, but I was under the GI Bill. And so I registered. And in less than 2 years, I got my degree in accounting at Blinn College in Brenham. I went to Austin and signed up to go to University of Texas. And I went back to school. I lived in a boarding house. And I got another 2 degrees there in Austin. And I met my wife. She was working. I was in accounting and she was in history. And so I wound up in the history department working for them. And so I got my other 2 degrees in history, or one other degree in history. As I was graduating, I was recalled for the Korean War. And I was the first one called back in South Texas. So they flew me from Austin to Houston. I'd never been in a plane before. Here I wanted to go in the Air Force, and I'd never been in a plane before in my life. So it was Trans-Texas Airways, was the main airline in Texas then. I never got close to a plane in the war. They flew me to Houston, and a guy from the recruiting station in Houston, the old chiefs, there were 3 old chiefs there in the federal building. And by the way, that's where I originally joined the service in World War II, the federal building in Houston. So I went, he picked me up to the airport, took me up there. He said, we're retiring from the service, but we're supposed to open up a recruiting station at the Navy Hospital out on Holcomb Drive. So I'm going to take you out there and you set it up. So I was just a enlisted man. I wasn't a commissioned officer. I was a non-commissioned officer. He took me out there and they had 3 beautiful buildings. They had a big hospital out there, and it had been given, and they had these 3 auxiliary buildings, real nice ones, about 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. And he took me to this one, and he had the keys for it. We opened it up, and it had been closed up, and all the desks were all in there with the chairs and stacked on top of them, and typewriters and mimeographics, everything stored. So he said, well, I'm going to leave you here, and Monday morning you come back and open this up, and I'm going to start bringing you guys that we're being recalled for the Korean War. Here, this is all news. So I went in and I opened up everything, and I took all the chairs and everything down and set everything up. It was about 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, a lot of different offices, all the equipment and everything to run the place. And about 10 o'clock, the old chief rolled in a bus and he had 30 guys that had been recalled. And he said, now, all you have to do is write up orders for them, and we'll send them to San Diego tonight. They had just come in from their home. They'd gotten orders like me, don't know what's going on. So anyways, I muddled through and got typed up orders and meal tickets and everything for him. And he came back at 5 o'clock, and he took them to the train station and sent them to San Diego. And they had come down there thinking they were being recalled to find out about it. And they were in San Diego. 2 days later, their families, and nobody knew what was going on. And so the chief said, now anybody that's got a rate like yours, that's a yeoman, that's a clerk, and you can stop them. And we need pharmacist mates to give them physicals, and we need guys like you to write their orders up and everything. And then you need a bus driver. I'll bring you a bus, and I'll bring you a car too. They just dumped it on me. So in a week, I had found 2 or 3 other guys that were yeomen and stuff. And I said, do you want to stay here, or do you want to go to Korea? And just like me, you can imagine what they said. Yes, we'll stay. So I stopped them, and they went through the same process, and they had to come to work. We worked 7 days a week, by the way, and they came to work and helped me, and we processed 30, 40, 60, 80, 100 guys a day, and put them on the train every night. For 6 months, we shipped them out the day they showed up. They had the businesses, everything else, and they couldn't even go back to them. They had wives and families, everything. It was terrible. Finally, the Congress got a hold of it, and they gave them 2 weeks leave after they got their recall. So they had, when they came in to us, we'd give them 2 weeks to go get their life in order, and then come back. Then we'd ship them out. Now, anybody that had expertise in large guns, like on battleships, we had to fly them out. So we took them to the airport on Branagh and flew them directly to San Diego, and they went directly on to battleships. The other guys, they went through a week or 2 or 10 days training in San Diego. That was the biggest naval station in the United States. And they went through about a week's training in getting uniforms, because most of them didn't have uniforms. They were just reservists, and they didn't go to weekly training camp. And so they got all outfitted, and they shipped them immediately to Korea, everybody. It was a mess. Finally, I had 30 guys working in the station, and they sent us a commanding officer and an executive officer and 5 doctors, because we were given physicals, and we didn't know what we were doing. We just asked them, "Are you okay?" And they'd say, "Well, no, I got a little heart trouble." Well, that doesn't make any difference. We'd send them to San Diego was checking them in San Diego and finding they had heart trouble and all, and they send them back, and they go home, and they discharge them from the Navy. But they had to go through all that mess because Congress didn't didn't allow for any of it. Anyways, we wound up sending 40,000 guys to San Diego.
Wow.
Reservists from Texas. The war ended in just 2 years, and they said you got to close the station. We're not going to get it. The Congress doesn't give you any more money to run the station. So all of you have two choices. You can go and stay in the service, and we're going to send you to Alaska or to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And otherwise, you get a discharge. You go to Orange, Texas, and get a discharge. Well, everybody but there was only about 3 guys. Everybody was married and had families and everything. So only 2 guys decided to stay in the service, and they went to Camp Lejeune.